Admiral Sarah stood at the observation deck of the Deep Space Research Station Aurora 7, watching the stars beyond the edge of human space. The station floated quietly in the darkness, its mission simple: study the unknown regions beyond Earth's solar system and search for signs of intelligent life. Sarah was not alone on the station. 6 other high-ranking military officers from different Earth nations had come to Aurora 7 for a special meeting. They were planning humanity's next steps into the galaxy. General Maria from Mexico studied star charts at a nearby table. Colonel from Nigeria worked on communication protocols. Commander from Japan reviewed ship designs. Captain from Russia examined weapon systems. Major from India analyzed alien technology samples. Wing Commander from Norway planned flight routes to distant stars. These 7 women were among Earth's best military minds. They had been chosen for this secret meeting because each brought different skills and knowledge. Together, they would help humanity take its first real steps beyond the solar system. The morning had been productive. They had discussed plans for new space stations, better ships, and ways to defend Earth if they met hostile aliens. The universe was vast and unknown. Humanity needed to be ready for anything. Contact on long-range sensors, called Ensign Martinez from the communications center. Unknown ship approaching from the outer system. Sarah moved quickly to the sensor station. The approaching ship was massive, far larger than anything humans had ever built. Its design was strange, with flowing curves and materials that seemed to bend light around them. This was not human technology. First contact protocols, Sarah ordered calmly. Send the standard greeting message on all frequencies. The 7 commanders gathered around the main display screen. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for: contact with an alien civilization. The alien ship did not respond to their messages. Instead, it moved closer at incredible speed. Warning alarms began to sound throughout the station. Massive energy buildup detected, reported the sensor operator. They're charging some kind of weapon system. Shields up, Sarah commanded. All defensive systems online. But Aurora 7 was a research station, not a military base. Its shields were weak, meant only to protect against space debris and radiation. The alien ship fired without warning. The beam hit the station like a giant fist. Power failed throughout Aurora 7. Emergency lighting flickered on as the station shook violently. The 7 commanders were thrown to the ground as sections of the station began to fail. Hull breach in sections 7 through 12, Martinez reported, his voice shaking. We're losing atmosphere fast. Through the observation windows, they could see smaller ships launching from the alien vessel. These attack craft moved with purpose toward the damaged station. They're boarding us, General said, checking her sidearm. This isn't a peaceful contact. The 7 women moved quickly through the station, trying to reach the escape pods. But the alien boarders were faster. Strange beings in powered armor moved through the corridors with alien weapons that fired beams of blue light. Any human who tried to resist was hit by these beams and fell unconscious immediately. Sarah and her companions found themselves trapped in the main laboratory. The aliens had cut off all escape routes. Through the doorway, they could see tall figures in gleaming armor. The aliens moved with confidence, as if they had done this many times before. Surrender, came a voice through a translation device. The words were cold and mechanical. Resistance is useless. You will come with us. Like hell we will, Colonel said, raising her weapon. The fight was brief and hopeless. The alien weapons were too advanced. One by one, the 7 commanders were struck by the blue beams and lost consciousness. The last thing Sarah saw was alien hands reaching for her fallen body. When she woke up, Sarah found herself in a small metal cell. The walls were smooth and featureless. There was no door that she could see. A soft blue light came from somewhere in the ceiling. The air smelled strange, with a metallic taste that made her throat burn. She was alone. The other 6 commanders were nowhere to be seen. Through some kind of speaker in the wall, alien voices spoke in their own language. Sarah could not understand the words, but she could hear the tone. The aliens sounded casual, almost bored. To them, this was just another day at work. Later, a section of the wall became transparent. Beyond it, Sarah could see a vast alien ship. Strange beings moved through corridors that stretched in all directions. Some wore the same armor as the boarders. Others looked different, smaller and weaker. These seemed to be servants or slaves. A figure approached her cell. It was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore robes instead of armor and carried a device that looked like a computer tablet. "Human female," the being said through its translator. "You are specimen 7 of 7 collected from your primitive outpost. You will be studied to help our empire understand your species better." "My name is Admiral Sarah," she said firmly. "I demand to speak with your commander. I demand to know why you attacked our station." The alien looked at her with what might have been amusement. "Your protests are noted and ignored. Your species is new to our empire. You have no rights, no standing, no importance. You are here to serve science." "Where are my companions?" Sarah demanded. "The other females are safe. Each is being housed separately for individual study. Your species shows interesting variations between individuals. This will help our researchers understand how humans might be useful to the empire." The alien turned to leave, then paused. "You should know that your capture was planned. We studied your primitive communications and identified you 7 as leaders. Female leaders were chosen specifically because our studies suggest human females are less aggressive than males. You will be easier to manage and study." Sarah felt cold anger building inside her. "You made a mistake." "Impossible," the alien replied. "The Empire has conquered 847 star systems. We have studied thousands of species. Humans are just another primitive race that will learn to serve the Empire or be destroyed." After the alien left, Sarah sat in her cell and thought about what she had heard. The aliens believed they understood humans. They thought taking 7 female commanders would be safe and easy. They expected no real response from Earth. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Somewhere in the vast alien ship, 6 other human commanders were having similar thoughts. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had kidnapped the wrong people, and soon, very soon, humanity would show them exactly what that mistake would cost. The emergency message reached Earth exactly 18 hours after Aurora 7 went silent. The automated distress beacon had transmitted for 6 minutes before the station was completely destroyed. Those 6 minutes of data changed everything for humanity. President Williams of the United States sat in the emergency session of the Global Security Council. The room was filled with leaders from every major nation on Earth. The holographic display showed the final moments of Aurora 7 and the 7 missing commanders. "They took our people," President Williams said quietly. "They destroyed our station. They did this without warning, without negotiation, without any attempt at peaceful contact." Premier of China studied the alien ship data. "The technology gap is massive. Their ship was 10 times larger than our biggest space station. Their weapons cut through our shields like they were made of paper." "That doesn't matter," said Prime Minister of Nigeria, her voice hard with anger. "They took my daughter. Colonel was on that station because she believed in humanity's future among the stars. Now some alien empire thinks they can just take our people like we're animals in a zoo." Chancellor of Germany nodded grimly. "The question is, what do we do about it?" For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth agreed on something completely. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would respond with everything they had. Within 24 hours, the Emergency War Powers Act was signed by every government on Earth. The old United Nations was dissolved and replaced with the United Earth Defense Force. Every military, every scientist, every engineer, and every factory on the planet now served one purpose: bring the 7 commanders home and make sure this could never happen again. General was chosen to lead the UEDF. He was a veteran of every major conflict of the past 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. In his first briefing, he laid out the reality. We are facing an enemy that has conquered 800 star systems. They have technology far beyond ours. They have been doing this for thousands of years. By every logical measure, we should surrender now and hope they treat us kindly. He paused and looked around the room at the assembled military leaders. But logic has never been humanity's strongest point. We're going to get our people back. We're going to make sure this empire learns that taking humans has consequences. And we're going to do it with whatever we can build, steal, or improvise. The transformation of human civilization happened faster than anyone thought possible. Every space-capable vehicle was brought back to Earth and modified for military use. Cargo ships became troop transports. Mining vessels became weapons platforms. Even tourist shuttles were fitted with crude missile systems. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, Earth's leading expert on theoretical physics, found herself in charge of the largest scientific project in human history. Her team had one job: figure out how the alien ship moved so fast and build something better. The debris from Aurora 7 shows they use some kind of space-folding technology, she explained to the military planners. They don't travel through space. They compress space around their ships. It's like taking a piece of paper, folding it, and stepping across the fold instead of walking the long way. Can we copy it? General asked. Not exactly, but we might be able to do something better. Human engineering has always been about taking a complex problem and finding a simple, brutal solution. Their technology is elegant and sophisticated. Ours is going to be crude and effective. While the scientists worked on new technology, the military planners studied everything they knew about the alien empire. The 6 minutes of data from Aurora 7 was analyzed frame by frame. Every word the aliens had spoken was translated and studied. Captain James, Earth's top intelligence analyst, presented his findings to the War Council. They call themselves the Empire. Based on their communication intercepts, they see themselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy. They've been expanding for over 2,000 years. They conquer species, study them, and then either enslave them or destroy them. What about our 7 commanders? Asked Admiral Santos. They're being held for study. They want to understand how humans think and fight before they decide what to do with our entire species. That gives us time, but not much. Pulled up a star chart showing known alien territories. The good news is that they think we're primitive and harmless. They're not expecting any kind of military response. The bad news is that their closest military base has more ships than our entire space fleet. Then we'll have to be smarter than them, General said. The shipyards of Earth ran day and night. Massive construction projects began in orbit around every planet and moon in the solar system. Humanity had always been good at building things quickly when they needed to. Now they needed to build a fleet capable of fighting an interstellar empire. The new ships were not beautiful or elegant like alien vessels. They were functional, tough, and designed for one purpose: hitting the enemy as hard as possible before being destroyed. Human engineers called them wolf ships because they were designed to hunt in packs and bring down much larger prey. Meanwhile, deep in space aboard the alien research vessel, Admiral Sarah and her 6 companions had not been idle. They had learned to communicate through the ship's ventilation system, using a code based on pipe tapping that their guards could not understand. They had also been watching and learning. The aliens were confident but careless. They did not see the 7 women as a threat. They did not know that each commander had been chosen for this mission partly because of their escape and survival training. Colonel had discovered that the alien guards changed shifts every 12 hours. Commander had figured out how the door locks worked by watching the guards' movements. Captain had identified the locations of the ship's weapon systems by listening to the sounds of machinery through the walls. Most importantly, Admiral had been studying the alien psychology. They were arrogant. They believed their technology made them superior to all other species. They thought that conquering hundreds of worlds made them unstoppable. But Sarah had seen something the aliens missed. She had noticed the small, weak beings who served as slaves throughout the ship. These creatures moved carefully, fearfully. They had been conquered species too, and they hated their masters. During one of her interrogation sessions, Sarah managed to speak briefly with one of these slaves when the guards were distracted. "How many species has the Empire conquered?" she asked quietly. The small alien looked terrified but answered, "Many, so many. They take the best of each world and destroy the rest. There is no hope of resistance. They are too strong." "Maybe," Sarah said, "but they've never met humans before." Back on Earth, the first human battle fleet was almost ready. 50 ships, each carrying weapons that human engineers had designed specifically to fight an empire that thought itself invincible. The ships were crude and brutal compared to alien technology, but they had one advantage the aliens would not expect. They were built by a species that had never learned how to give up. General stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Vengeance and looked out at the assembled fleet. In 6 months, humanity had gone from having no real military space presence to fielding a battle force that could threaten an interstellar empire. "All ships report ready," came the communication from the fleet. "Then let's go get our people back," said. The 7 human commanders were about to learn that their kidnapping had awakened something the galaxy had never seen before, a species willing to fight an empire to save 7 of their own. Admiral of the Border Fleet was having a routine morning when his sensors detected something impossible. Long-range scanners showed a formation of unknown ships emerging from the primitive Sol system. According to Imperial records, the humans had no interstellar military capability. "Communications," ordered from his command throne aboard the battleship Stellar Dominance. "Contact the unknown vessels. Inform them they are entering Imperial space without permission." The response came back in crude but understandable Imperial language. "We are the United Earth Defense Force. We are looking for our people. Stand aside." Felt amusement ripple through his scaled features. The humans had actually built ships. Primitive, ugly vessels that looked like they had been assembled in a hurry, but ships nonetheless. It was almost impressive for such a young species. "Scan their vessels," he commanded. "Let's see what these creatures have managed to build." The tactical officer's voice held confusion. "Sir, their ships are heavily armed. Missile systems, energy weapons, and something else. There are unusual power readings throughout their fleet." "How many ships?" asked. 57 vessels, Admiral. All appear to be combat configured." Stood from his throne. In 2,000 years of imperial expansion, no primitive species had ever launched a fleet against the Empire. This was unprecedented. "Signal the humans," he decided. "Inform them that their people were taken according to imperial law. They have no authority to demand anything. Order them to retreat or be destroyed." The human response was immediate. All 57 ships opened fire at once. Had fought dozens of battles against various alien species. He knew how space combat worked. 2 fleets would maneuver for position, exchange long-range fire, and gradually wear each other down until one side retreated or surrendered. This was civilized warfare, conducted according to galactic conventions. The humans ignored every convention. Their ships charged straight at the Imperial fleet while firing everything they had. They didn't try to preserve their vessels or minimize casualties. When their missiles were exhausted, they switched to energy weapons. When their energy weapons overheated, They rammed Imperial ships with their own vessels. "Sir," the tactical officer screamed, "the human ship Defiance just collided with the Star Crusher. Both vessels are destroyed." "That's impossible," said. "No commander would deliberately destroy his own ship." But another human ship was already lining up for a ramming attack on the Imperial cruiser Void Walker. The human captain had no intention of surviving the battle. His only goal was to take an Imperial ship with him when he died. "All ships full retreat," ordered. "Emergency fold to Nexus Station immediately." The Imperial fleet fled. For the first time in 1,000 years, ships ran from battle. Behind them, the human fleet did not pursue. Instead, they began scanning every piece of debris, every escape pod, every fragment of wreckage. Captain Lisa stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched her crew work. They had won their first battle against the Empire, but the victory felt hollow. None of the Imperial survivors knew anything about the 7 captured commanders. "Ma'am," called the intelligence officer, "we're picking up transmissions from the Imperial escape pods. They're calling for reinforcements and warning their command about our tactics." "Let them warn," said grimly. "The more scared they get, the more mistakes they'll make." But the humans were just getting started. Over the next 3 months, Earth's fleet struck at 12 different Imperial outposts. Each attack followed the same pattern: overwhelming force, complete commitment, and tactics that horrified Imperial commanders. At the mining station of 7, human ships arrived and demanded information about their missing people. When the Imperial commander refused, the humans destroyed every Imperial vessel in the system, then carefully evacuated all the alien slave workers to neutral space before demolishing the mining operation. At the trade hub of Vega Station, human forces surrounded the massive commercial platform. Instead of demanding surrender, they broadcast a message to every ship in the system. Any vessel carrying Imperial military personnel would be destroyed. Civilian ships were free to leave. Then they waited. The panic was immediate. Civilian ships fled the station as fast as they could launch. Within hours, only Imperial military vessels remained. The humans destroyed them all, then boarded the station to search for information about their captured people. "They're not fighting to conquer territory," reported General to the Imperial War Council. "They're fighting to find 7 specific individuals. They don't want to rule us. They don't want our resources. They just want their people back." Emperor Han studied the tactical reports from the frontier. The humans had destroyed 43 Imperial ships and captured 6 others. They had rescued nearly 10,000 alien slaves and relocated them to safety. But they had shown no interest in keeping any Imperial territory or resources. "What kind of species fights a war just to recover 7 individuals?" the Emperor asked. "A dangerous one," replied. "Your Majesty, their tactics are completely outside normal military doctrine. They don't try to preserve their forces. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat. Every engagement is fought as if the survival of their entire species depends on winning that single battle." The Emperor studied the holographic displays showing human ship movements. The primitive vessels were spreading throughout Imperial space, hitting military targets while carefully avoiding civilian areas. Their intelligence gathering was surprisingly sophisticated. "How are they getting such accurate information about our fleet movements?" the Emperor demanded. "We believe they're receiving help from slave populations," admitted. "Many conquered species see the humans as liberators. They're providing intelligence, supplies, and even volunteers for human crews." This was something the Empire had never experienced. In 2,000 years of expansion, conquered species had always accepted their fate. The idea that slaves would help an invading force was unthinkable. Aboard the Imperial research vessel Dominance of Stars, the 7 human commanders had been following the war through careful observation of their guards' behavior. The aliens were nervous now, constantly checking their weapons and communicating in urgent whispers. Admiral Sarah had managed to establish contact with more of the ship's slave workers. Through careful questioning, she learned that human fleets were striking throughout Imperial space. The entire Empire was mobilizing to deal with what they called the human problem. "They're scared," she told the others during one of their ventilation system communications. "The Empire has never faced an enemy that fights like this." Colonel's voice came through the pipes. "Good. Scared enemies make mistakes." Meanwhile, Commander had made progress on understanding the ship systems. "I've been watching the guard rotations and the maintenance schedules. There's a pattern. Every 7 days, they shut down sections of the ship for cleaning and repairs. If we time it right, we might be able to move between decks without being detected." Captain had been studying the alien psychology. "They keep asking us questions about human military capabilities. They want to know how many ships we can build, how fast we can build them, and whether Earth has other military forces they haven't seen yet." "What do you tell them?" asked Major. "The truth," replied. "I tell them that taking 7 of our commanders was the biggest mistake they could possibly make, and that they haven't seen anything yet." She was right. Back on Earth, the first human battle fleet had been just the beginning. Production facilities throughout the solar system were now turning out new ships at an incredible rate. Each new vessel incorporated lessons learned from the early battles. The second wave would consist of 150 ships. The third wave would have over 300. Humanity was preparing for total war against an empire that controlled most of the galaxy. But the humans had advantages the empire didn't understand. Every conquered species in imperial space was watching the human war with hope. Some were actively helping. Others were simply refusing to fight against the humans when ordered to do so. The Emperor received reports of strikes, sabotage, and rebellion throughout the empire. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were suddenly remembering what freedom felt like. "Your Majesty," General said during the emergency council session, "I recommend we negotiate with the humans, return their 7 people and offer compensation. This war is destabilizing the entire empire." Emperor Han's eyes blazed with fury. "The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. Order the full battle fleet to Sol system. We will destroy there and end this rebellion before it spreads further." The general nodded reluctantly, but privately he wondered if the Emperor understood what they were dealing with. The humans had started a war to save 7 people. What would they do to protect their entire species? Soon the Empire would find out. 1 year after the capture of the 7 commanders, humanity controlled 17 star systems that had once belonged to the Empire. But controlled was not the right word for what humans were doing. General stood in the command center aboard the massive human battleship UES Unstoppable and studied the tactical displays. Unlike other species, humans didn't conquer territory to keep it. They captured imperial systems, stripped them of military value, evacuated all slave populations, and then destroyed anything that could be used against Earth. "Status report from the campaign," reported Commander Sarah. "The Fifth Fleet has taken the shipyards. Admiral Harrison reports they've rescued 40,000 alien slaves and captured 12 Imperial vessels intact. The shipyards have been stripped of all useful technology and then destroyed." Nodded. It was the same pattern they had followed in every system. Human fleets would appear without warning, destroy Imperial military forces, rescue enslaved populations, steal any useful technology, and then move on. They left behind empty systems that were useless to the Empire. But the cost was enormous. Humanity had lost over 200 ships and 30,000 soldiers in the past year. Any other species would have surrendered long ago. Instead, Earth was building ships faster than ever. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw's science teams had made breakthrough after breakthrough by studying captured Imperial technology. Human ships now used hybrid systems that combined alien engineering with human innovation. The results were crude but devastatingly effective. The new Wolfpack destroyers are ready for deployment, Shaw reported during the morning briefing. They're faster than anything the Empire has, and their weapons hit twice as hard as our first-generation ships. How many? Asked. 230 vessels, sir, all equipped with the new quantum torpedo systems and improved armor. Felt grim satisfaction. Earth's industrial capacity had been completely converted to military production. Every factory, every mine, every construction facility was working to build the fleet that would bring their people home. But the Empire was finally responding with its full strength. Emperor Han stood aboard his flagship, the massive battle fortress Eternal Domination. Around him stretched the largest military fleet in galactic history, 3,000 ships, including the Empire's most powerful dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and assault carriers. Your Majesty, Admiral Al reported, long-range scouts confirm human fleet movements. They have approximately 800 ships now, spread across 23 systems. 800 ships against 3,000, the Emperor said coldly, and these humans still believe they can challenge the Empire. Sir, their tactics remain unusual. Intelligence reports suggest they are not trying to hold territory. They appear to be searching for something specific. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. They search for the 7 specimens we captured. Their entire war is an attempt to rescue 7 individuals. The idea still seemed impossible to him. No rational species would fight an interstellar war to save 7 people. The cost in lives and resources was insane by any logical measure. But logic had never been humanity's strongest point. Set course for Earth, the Emperor commanded. We will end this war by destroying their. When their planet burns, these humans will learn the price of defying the Empire. The Imperial fleet began its march toward Sol system. It would take 2 months to reach Earth, even with their fastest ships. During that time, the Emperor planned to crush every human fleet they encountered along the way. Meanwhile, aboard the research vessel Dominance of Stars, the 7 human commanders were preparing for their most desperate gamble yet. Admiral Sarah had spent months studying the ship's layout and the behavior of their alien captors. She had made contact with dozens of the ship's slave workers, many of whom were eager to help strike back against their imperial masters. The ship will dock at Nexus Prime in 3 days, she told the others during their latest communication session. Nexus Prime is the Empire's most secure military base. If we're going to escape, it has to be before we reach the station. Colonel had been working on the technical aspects of their escape plan. I've identified the ship's main computer core. If we can reach it, I might be able to access their communication systems and send a signal to our forces. Commander had been studying the guard rotations. The optimal window is during the night shift change. For exactly 17 minutes, the section between our cells and the computer core will have minimal security. Captain had been observing the slave workers. We have allies among the crew. At least 30 non-workers have agreed to help. They'll create distractions and provide cover when we make our move. Major had been analyzing the ship's weapon systems. If we can take the computer core, I can turn the ship's defensive systems against the Imperial fleet. This vessel has enough firepower to cripple several enemy ships. Wing Commander had been planning their escape route once they reached the core. There are maintenance shafts that lead directly to the hangar bays. If we can steal a shuttle, we might be able to reach human forces. Admiral felt proud of her fellow commanders. Captured and held prisoner for over a year, they had never stopped fighting. They had turned their captivity into an opportunity to gather intelligence and plan strikes against their enemies. Remember, she said quietly, our mission isn't just to escape. We need to send intelligence about Imperial fleet movements back to Earth. Our forces need to know that the Empire is sending everything they have toward our. What the 7 commanders didn't know was that human intelligence networks had already discovered the Imperial fleet's movement toward Earth. Spy networks throughout Imperial space, composed mostly of liberated alien slaves, were feeding information to human commanders. Admiral Lisa Santos stood in the war room beneath the surface of Earth's moon and studied the intelligence reports. The Empire was committing everything to one massive assault on Earth itself. "They're bringing 3,000 ships," she said to the assembled human commanders. "Every major Imperial vessel, including their battle fortresses and planet-killer weapons." General looked at the tactical displays. Earth's defenses were formidable, but 3,000 Imperial ships was an overwhelming force. "Our current fleet strength?" he asked. 1,200 vessels, Santos replied, plus orbital defense platforms, ground-based weapons, and asteroid field fortifications. We can hurt them, but those numbers. "Numbers don't win wars," said firmly. "Determination does. The Empire thinks they can scare us into surrender by bringing a massive fleet to Earth. They still don't understand what they're dealing with." He activated the general communications system that reached every human military unit in the galaxy. "All human forces, this is General. The Empire has committed their full fleet to assault Earth. This is what we've been preparing for. Every ship, every crew, every soldier now has one mission: protect Earth and bring our people home. The Empire thinks they can break humanity's will by threatening our. They're about to learn that threatening Earth only makes humans more dangerous." Throughout human space, battle fleets began moving toward Earth. Ship commanders who had been striking at Imperial targets for months now turned their vessels toward home. The scattered human wolf packs were becoming a unified battle fleet. But the humans had one more advantage the Empire didn't expect. In systems throughout Imperial space, alien species that had been conquered centuries ago were rising in rebellion. The human example had shown them that the Empire could be fought. While Imperial ships moved toward Earth, revolts erupted on dozens of Imperial worlds. The bird people of the Vega system seized control of there and declared independence. The cat-like beings of the Altair cluster attacked Imperial governors and reclaimed their ancient territories. Even the peaceful humans of Tau— no, wait, that was wrong. The peaceful of Tau began sabotaging Imperial supply lines. Emperor Han received reports of chaos throughout his empire, but he was committed to the assault on Earth. Once the human was destroyed, the rebellions would collapse. Fear would restore order. He had no idea that 7 human women were about to turn his most secure research vessel into a weapon aimed at the heart of his fleet. The countdown to the final battle had begun. The escape began at exactly 3:47 ship time, during the shift change that Commander had identified. Admiral Sarah moved through the maintenance shaft with practiced silence, followed by her 6 companions. Behind them, carefully coordinated distractions erupted throughout the ship as their alien allies went into action. In the engine room, a slave engineer, accidentally, triggered a coolant leak that required immediate attention from security forces. In the cargo bay, workers began fighting among themselves, drawing guards away from the central sections. Throughout the ship, small emergencies demanded the attention of Imperial security. The 7 women moved like shadows through corridors they had memorized during months of careful observation. When they reached the computer core, Colonel immediately went to work on the access panels while the others maintained watch. "I'm in," she whispered after several tense minutes, "accessing the ship's communication array now." Admiral moved to the secondary console and began downloading everything she could access: fleet movements, Imperial military codes, strategic plans, and most importantly, the location of every major Imperial fleet in the galaxy. "Sarah," Commander said urgently, "guards approaching from Corridor 7. "Almost finished," replied, her fingers flying over the alien controls. "Just need 30 more seconds." The sound of running feet echoed through the nearby corridors. Their escape had been discovered. "Got it," said, ejecting the data crystal. "Can you access the weapon systems?" Major was already at the weapons console. "Yes. This ship has enough firepower to level a small moon. I'm targeting the Imperial fleet around Nexus Prime." "Do it," ordered. The research vessel Dominance of Stars had been docked at Nexus Prime for routine resupply. Around the massive space station, 37 Imperial warships floated in protective formation. None of them expected the research vessel to suddenly open fire with every weapon it carried. The first salvo destroyed 3 Imperial cruisers before they could raise shields. The second wave of fire crippled the station's defensive systems. Chaos erupted throughout the Imperial fleet as commanders tried to understand why one of their own ships had turned against them. "All weapons firing," reported. "Enemy fleet is scattering. We've disabled their command ship and destroyed 6 vessels." "Get us to the hangar bay," commanded. "We need to reach that shuttle before." The ship shuddered as return fire from the Imperial fleet struck the hull. Wing Commander led them through corridors that were now filled with emergency lighting and the sound of battle damage alarms. They reached the hangar bay to find it in chaos. Alien crew members were running in all directions. Some were fleeing the battle, others were trying to organize a response to the human escape. "There," pointed to a small Imperial shuttle. "That one has interstellar capability." They ran across the hangar deck while energy bolts flew around them. Imperial guards had finally reached the hangar and were firing at anything that moved. The 7 commanders returned fire with stolen weapons while fighting their way to the shuttle. Captain reached the shuttle first and began powering up the engines. 30 seconds to launch," she called. General provided covering fire while the others boarded. "Go, I'll hold them off." "Not without you," said firmly. "All of us leave together or none of us leave." Smiled grimly and fired one last burst at the pursuing guards before leaping aboard the shuttle. Launched them into space just as the hangar bay doors began to close. Behind them, the research vessel continued its devastating attack on the Imperial fleet. Major had programmed the ship's automated systems to keep firing until the vessel was destroyed. It was a final gift to the Empire from 7 human prisoners. "This is Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Defense Force," she broadcast on all frequencies as their shuttle fled toward the edge of the system. "To any human forces receiving this transmission, we are free and have intelligence on Imperial fleet movements. The Empire has committed 3,000 ships to assault Earth. Nexus Prime is their primary strategic base." The response came immediately from a familiar voice. "Admiral, this is General aboard the UES Unstoppable. We are 3 hours out from Nexus Prime with the entire human battle fleet. It's good to hear your voice, ma'am." Looked at her fellow commanders and smiled for the first time in over a year. "General, it's good to be back in contact with friendly forces. We have detailed intelligence on Imperial capabilities and weaknesses, and we have a score to settle." The Battle of Nexus Prime would be remembered as the moment when humanity proved it could fight an interstellar empire and win. The human fleet arrived to find the Imperial forces in complete disarray, their command structure crippled by the attack from their own research vessel. But Emperor Han was not at Nexus Prime. His massive fleet was still approaching Earth, believing that destroying humanities would end the war quickly and decisively. He was about to learn the final lesson in human nature. When the Imperial fleet arrived at Earth, they found not a defenseless world but a fortress bristling with weapons. Humanity had spent the past year turning their entire solar system into a military base. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid had been fortified. The space around Earth glowed with the energy signatures of thousands of defensive platforms. But the real surprise was the human fleet itself. Over 2,000 ships now carried the banner of the United Earth Defense Force. Every vessel captured from the Empire had been reverse-engineered and improved. Human engineers had taken alien technology and made it better, faster, more deadly. The battle lasted 18 hours. Imperial ships fell back on their superior numbers and advanced technology. Human ships relied on their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. When ammunition ran low, human crews rammed their ships into Imperial vessels. When engines failed, human engineers jury-rigged repairs that should have been impossible. In the end, it was Admiral who delivered the final blow. She had taken command of the captured Imperial Dreadnought Star Destroyer and led a desperate charge directly at the Emperor's flagship. The Eternal Domination was the largest ship ever built, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. It meant nothing against a human commander, who had spent over a year planning exactly this moment. "This is for every human you thought you could take without consequences," said as her ship's weapons tore through the Imperial flagship's shields. "This is for every species your empire has enslaved, and this is for teaching the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for." The Emperor's ship exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from the surface of Earth. With their Emperor dead and their fleet shattered, the remaining Imperial forces finally requested terms for surrender. They found themselves facing Admiral aboard the captured Imperial command ship Galaxy's Pride, now flying human colors. "You took 7 of our people," said to the surviving Imperial admirals. "You believed we would accept this loss because we are primitive. You thought we would be grateful for your attention. You were wrong about everything." The surviving Imperial Admiral Al looked around the bridge that now flew human flags. "What do you want? Territory, resources, tribute?" Shook her head. "We want something your empire has never given to anyone, a guarantee that this will never happen again. You will release every slave in Imperial space. You will recognize the independence of every species that wants freedom, and you will learn to coexist with the rest of the galaxy instead of trying to conquer it." "That would mean the end of the Empire," Al protested. "Good," replied simply. "Empires that take people without permission don't deserve to exist." The Treaty of Saul was signed 3 days later. The Empire was dissolved, replaced by a loose confederation of free worlds. Thousands of enslaved species received their independence. The galaxy's balance of power shifted permanently. But the real change was in how other species looked at humanity. The humans had fought an impossible war against overwhelming odds and won. They had done it not for conquest or resources, but to bring home 7 of their own people. The memorial built on the former imperial capital world bore a simple inscription: "They took 7. We brought them home. The galaxy will remember." And the galaxy did remember. No species ever again made the mistake of thinking that humans were weak, or that human lives could be taken without consequences. The 7 commanders returned to Earth as heroes, but more importantly, as symbols of what humanity would do to protect its own. Admiral Sarah stood once again on an observation deck, but this time she looked out at a galaxy where humans were respected as equals. She thought about the long war, the terrible cost, and the simple principle that had driven everything. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter what the odds. In the end, that was the lesson humanity taught the galaxy. 7 people mattered. 7 lives were worth a war against an empire, and any civilization that didn't understand that truth would learn it the hard way. The galaxy was a safer place because humanity had refused to accept the unacceptable. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the wreckage of Imperial ships served as a reminder to anyone who might forget. Never underestimate a species fighting for their own.